Hello everyone, I am Taureor and these are my adjustments to EU4. I have 11 changes to the game that I would like to propose, and in my opinion they can make it even better. Of course I could be wrong, and for sure you have seen Arumba make those adjustment videos, so I thought, what the hell, I have some suggestions as well, and maybe some of them will be useful. I'm going to use my current English/British campaign that's currently going on my channel. I am a lot ahead here because I'm recording ahead. I will try to avoid spoilers as much as possible, but if you are afraid of those, turn off the visuals or something. Anyway, let's get on to the changes. Adjustment number 1. I would like to see automatic conversions introduced. This is why we are in the religion tab. And what do I mean exactly? Just a box here that would say auto-send missionaries or something like that. And when one missionary returns, he's automatically sent to convert another province. Because, to be honest, every time that is finished, I need to open the tab and click manually to send a missionary. I'm just doing it one by one. And if you could enable or disable it, if you want to choose a specific province, you would just disable the function and choose the specific province yourself. And if you just want to convert everything from easiest to most difficult, just select the option. And I guess it could be adjusted to include or not include uncored provinces. I think it would reduce micromanagement, which is, in my opinion, always a good thing. Now, adjustment 2. Beefing up religions. I believe, this is my personal opinion, and I might be biased because I usually play a very expansionist game, but I believe Catholicism is much stronger than other religions in this game. And why? Well, because if you are playing an expansionist game, and even more so if you're playing a colonial one, you can get tremendous bonuses from it. Colonial especially, because the Treaty of Tordesillas modifier effectively stops other colonizers from invading your colonial region and lets you claim a lot of territory quickly, and also speeds up your colonization. But also, if you're expansionist, it means you convert a lot of people to your religion, and also you get a lot of papal points from that, and from a lot of papal points you can basically always keep your stability high. Which is, I don't think it's overpowered, I think it's correctly powered. I just think other religions are too weak by comparison. And sure, they have nice bonuses, but nothing as strong as that, at least in my opinion. So that was adjustment number 2. Maybe just buff up the scale of the bonuses that the other religions get. For example, Protestantism lets you customize your religion, which is super cool, but all the bonuses you get are not as strong as what I can get in Catholicism, at least in my opinion. Alright, adjustment number 3. Transferring provinces to your allies in a war. Okay, this is going to be a little spoiler of who's in the war with me, but they are sorted. I'm not sure how they're sorted. Are they sorted randomly, or by how close they are to me, or by what? I don't know. They should be sorted alphabetically, in my opinion, in this screen. And why is this important? Well, because sometimes you have 100 allies in a war. It's rare, but if you play an HRE game, which I like to do, and you revoke the privilege, you pass the second to last reform, you suddenly get 30, 40, 50 or even 100 vassals, depending on how you played. And then transferring a province in a war to them means opening this screen, and then for a minute or two you just search for the country you want to transfer to. Because they're not sorted alphabetically. I think they're sorted by regions? I'm not sure. So I would suggest alphabetical sorting in this screen, which would make it much easier to use. Adjustment number 4. Automatic build interface implementation. I would suggest to add an automatic build function. Because if you're expanding, if you're very rich, you don't really want to, micromanage the buildings sometimes. And what I would suggest is one of two ways to approach this subject. Either set a manual queue, for example, build, let's say, churches everywhere, and when you run out of places to build churches, build, workshops or barracks or whatever, or and you sort them automatically. Sorry, not automatically. You manually select which ones you want. You could set thresholds of the increase in income. For example, if building the church will give you 0 extra income, basically don't build it. But if it would give you, for example, 0.05 or 0.10, then build it, something like that. And I would introduce a cash reserve. For example, if my money goes over, I don't know, 5,000 ducats, then for the excess money, build something automatically. Or, also with the cash reserve, it could be an automatic setting. For example, maximize income. Then the game would select the most profitable place to build, either a church or workshop or maybe a marketplace. Although trade is or a manufacturing or maximize trade, then it would build marketplaces and stuff like that, or maximize manpower, for example, or force limit. Also with the cash reserve, and then the game would select a province in which, for example, building a church will give you the best bonus and build it there, and if building a workshop would get a better bonus, it would build a workshop. I don't know much about programming, but I know enough to understand that this is a pretty simple algorithm to implement. Well, maybe not. Well, certainly not a problematic one, not like programming the AI of the game. And I think it would simplify things a lot and also make it much more pleasant and convenient. Okay, that was adjustment number 4. And I really would like to see that one. Adjustment number 5, Westernization and the army. I do like the new institution system. I think it's exciting and interesting, but it imbalances the game quite a lot. For example, I'm currently fighting Tunis, Morocco, Mali, and Katsina. I can beat them, no problem, not with the amount of manpower and money I have, but there's a difference in quality of troops. Mali has military level 26. I am ahead of time, I have military level 27. So basically Mali in the year 1744 is on a time with military technology. They also have some nice ideas, which means they can beat my armies. And it might make the game a bit more exciting, but I don't care about historical fiction. It's fine if it's not historical, but to a point. Can you imagine, for example, in the Victorian era, which of course comes later than this, if some colonizers arrived in Africa and they were greeted by armies with cannons and basically as good a discipline as any European army? This is just too imbalanced, in my opinion. Of course, it should be possible to catch up with the Westerners, but the embracement of the institutions in the less developed regions like Africa or Asia shouldn't be that easy, because they basically caught up with us, and they are as strong as any European power, which should not be the case in this time frame. It is not a fantasy map. I would understand if, because I'm playing with a random new world, if there was a super advanced Aztec Empire or something like that. If you select a fantasy new automatically generated new world. But in this case, I think this is counterintuitive, and it should not be like this. Because it's too ahistorical. It's just not, it doesn't feel right. I'm sure the developers understand what I'm talking about, and I expect there will be some balancing changes, but I did want to point this out. In 1744, African nations, well, apart from, like the Egypt region, should not be able to keep up with the British Empire in terms of military quality. Because it's not just the matter of giving them guns like in The Last Samurai. Remember the movie with Tom Cruise? They brought some guns to Japan. And yeah, you also have to kind of train the people, and you need years upon years of experience, and a well-trained and adjusted officer corps, army discipline, all those things. They're not just represented by army tradition, they're also represented by military technology. And if countries from the less developed parts of the world can just jump ahead in time and catch up with the Europeans with no trouble whatsoever. I think it's a bit imbalanced. Okay, let's move on to the next point. And that is adjustment number 6, lowering the influence of the estates. You will notice I don't have the nobility, that's because I have the English monarchy. But basically, I do like the interactions with the estates a lot. I do like that different influence gives you different bonuses, and same with loyalty. But it's missing a way to reduce influence. And that might be intentional, of course, because you have to be careful, and if it goes over 80%, you get a disaster. But I found it more annoying than problematic. When, for example, by 2 random events clergy went over 80% in my game, I of course didn't allow them to rebel. I just revoked some provinces from them to reduce their influence. And then when the influence went back down, I gave them provinces again. But this is tedious. It's not fun to do it manually, to search for the provinces, revoke them, and so on. You understand? So this might be a design choice, but I would want to suggest a way to reduce the influence as maybe a panic button of some sort that could cost you monarch points, which would make sense, or it could cost you legitimacy or prestige or tons and tons of money or even stability. But I think it should be there. I would rather lose one stability just to get rid of that disaster rather than go through all the provinces and revoke them and have that, because that's a hassle. That's micromanagement, which could be avoided. So I would like to suggest a way to reduce influence of a certain faction by decision, even if it is expensive. Right. Adjustment number 7. Some adjustments to idea groups. In particular, I believe that naval, maritime, and espionage are not correctly balanced, at least for single player. Why is that? Well, naval and maritime, unless you're playing someone like Venice, who tries to dominate the seas, or you're playing in a multiplayer game and it's heavy navy dependent, I believe those two to be basically useless. And because navy is very situational in this game. They tried to make it more useful, and it is useful. It's just situational. You don't need a navy. You can do well without a navy if you don't have one. Usually. And if you need it very occasionally. So I believe these ideas are so very situational that they're not worth the effort. They can easily be replaced by other ideas. I believe quality is infinitely superior to naval, even in terms of even if you care about your ships. And how I would like to adjust this, maybe consider putting in 1, 2, or maybe even 3 bits that relate to other stuff other than navy, like for example, getting some extra trade power, just from having that idea. Like implement some stuff from trade ideas, increase trade efficiency, give an extra merchant or something. Trade, basically not at the level of trade ideas, of course, but give some more incentive to take those. And as for espionage, espionage can be very useful for screwing with people in a multiplayer game, but it is basically useless in a single player game. And my suggestion here might be too imbalanced to implement, but it is my secret hope that it will be implemented someday. And what I would like to see in EU4 is assassinations, like in CK2. They could be used to remove a powerful enemy ruler, put someone into a regency, or even pursue personal unions. Of course, they would be a very powerful tool and could be easily imbalanced, so such an assassination attempt would carry a great risk of aggressive expansion, maybe legitimacy reduction, maybe even stability reduction. And it should be very, very expensive. And if espionage ideas were to be made more relevant, it could be the last thing you unlock. You could just get the ability to send assassins. Wouldn't that be fun? And of course, some countermeasures would also have to be introduced, like, better counter-espionage or something like this, or hiring bodyguards to reduce assassination chance. I believe it would be complicated to implement this and balance it correctly, but I also believe it would add a whole new layer to the game and finally make espionage interesting. So I really, really hope that assassinations will be included one day. Maybe not immediately, but someday maybe. Okay. Now, adjustment number 8. I believe that idea groups should be unlocked a bit earlier. For example, not 5, 7, 10, 14, but 5, 7, and 9, 12, and so on. Maybe just condense them, give them out a little bit sooner, because they're interesting. And late game, the 8th idea group comes in such late game that hardly anyone gets it, and it's a pity, because ideas are interesting. If we could get them a little bit earlier, at least. For example, at level 26 or 27, you would get the last idea group, not the second to last idea group. I believe that would be just more fun, and that's what games are about, right? And I don't think it would be imbalanced. Right, so this is my suggestion. Just give out idea groups slightly earlier. Just so idea group 8 is maybe at level 26, maybe 27, maybe 25, but not 29. Right, this was adjustment number 8. Number 9. Money and how useless it is when you have an excess amount of money. You can see I'm super rich. That's because we're making a lot of money from trade. Well, I must applaud Paradox because the recent changes gave us more uses for our money, especially with the Great Powers actions, where you can, for example, pay off someone's debts or influence a nation. But at some point, you can still get too much money, and it's unrealistic. You can't have... At this point, I have nothing to do with the money. I can hire a huge army, but that's pretty much everything, anything I can... Well, I can't do more than that. I can hire a huge army and that's basically it. Or I can send gifts to everyone and make them like me, but what for? Or I can get buildings in my subjects, which is not necessarily a good idea. You get the picture. Money becomes useless when you have too much of it. What I would like to see implemented is to substitute large amounts of money for monarch points at some point. Either to increase development in provinces, it can cost a lot. I would even if it cost 1,000 to do something, I might do it because I have excess money. So either let us increase development with even very large amounts of money, or just let us basically convert excess money into monarch points. Not directly, maybe, not necessarily directly, but we can convert monarch points into money. Like, for example, with war taxes. Why not the other way around? And it doesn't have to be... we get a bit of it with rooting out corruption, but it doesn't have to be a good trade. I would pay 1,000 ducats to get 10 monarch points at this point. It could be scaled with your income. But I would like to see something to do with excess money, because there comes a point when there's nothing you can do with that money. Well, I could send out like 100 colonists. Well, not 100, but you get the picture. That would just ruin my economy theoretically, but that's excessive. I would like to have a smart use for the excess money. At this point, I just never lower army maintenance or disable forts because I have just so much cash that it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying I have too much cash. I'm saying I have nothing to do with it. There are no options for super rich people. Okay, what else? Maybe we could buy vassalage from smaller countries for obscene amounts of money. That would be realistic, even if it would be a little bit imbalanced. Right. Adjustment number 9, missions. This is... I would like to request a little adjustment in the mission generation thing, because I'm playing as Great Britain, but I have so far had no interest in either India or the Spice Islands. And for the last 100 years, pretty much, these are all the missions that I get. A base in India or establish yourselves in the Spice Islands. And that's everything. Well, sometimes when I'm overextended, I get the mission to reduce overextension, or when I'm low on manpower, is recover manpower. But that's it. I understand the game is trying to suggest a course of action to me, but it would be much more fun if it suggested several courses of action to me. Unless I ran out of missions somehow. I don't think so. Basically, all it suggested for the last 100 years was for me to go to India or the Spice Islands, and I had no intention of doing that, so it just kept suggesting it. I would like to see more options, more paths diverging from it. Right, that was adjustment number 10, and finally adjustment number 11. And I know there isn't much. Basically, yeah, I tweeted to Johan to introduce it, and he said he won't. But I would like to argue for it. Basically, mothballing armies, or putting them in reserves. And what do I mean? Well, when you increase or decrease army maintenance, it works on all your armies. Wouldn't it be fun if you could only, exclude some armies like you can multiple ships? Just put them in reserve. So yeah, they get equipment and so on, but they're just, leisurely sitting there. You don't need to have them fully mobilized. It could be excluding them completely, or just setting them, for example, a 50% maintenance thing when we go to war. Something like that. Not a separate slider, just click like you click with mothballing, click an army to reserves, and it will just sit there, with lower morale. Why would I want that? Well, for example, at this point I'm fighting a war in Africa, but I relatively recently, okay, there will be a small spoiler, so if you follow the series and don't want spoilers, you might want to stop listening now. So, I recently also had a war here, and see how many troops I left here, because going back to Europe will take them forever. And I'm going to fight some more wars here. But the current war with Tunis and friends is not going to involve them in any way. Tunis won't come here to beat them up. So what I would like to do is just set them to reserves, so I wouldn't have to pay for them if they're not doing anything. I'm just leaving them here for later, on the other side of the world. I'll use them to conquer the rest of Korea soon. But that will be in a different war. I would like to see a button that lets me either, the equivalent of mothballing, just put them in reserves, or garrison them or something. For example, they would be unable to move and have like half morale, but I would only pay half maintenance for them. Something like that. So that my economy won't suffer. That is especially useful if you have several fronts. For example, if you're colonizing and fighting colonial wars, you don't need all your troops in Europe to be ready to fight. You don't need them all to be mobilized and have, full combat ready. I think that would make perfect sense to do it, honestly. You don't need a separate slider or anything, just, a garrison button. Click, and they are immobile, can't move, have half morale or something, but I only pay part of the maintenance for them. And we can ungarrison them, it will take them a while to recover morale, and they will be back to work, just like with mothballing ships. And please implement this. I think I have heard several voices urging Paradox to do it, and it can't be that difficult. Just, just lock morale at half, and they can't move, and that's it, and pay half maintenance for them. Right? I hope this gets implemented, although I hope for the automatic builder more. Anyway, those are my suggestions for adjustments to EU4, and at the end I want to say just, let me quote TJ Haffer. Sometimes when I play EU4, it's not an exact quote, but the intention. Sometimes when I play EU4, I wonder why I even own other games, and I think that's pretty accurate in my case as well. So yeah, I love the game. I think it can be even better, even though it is the best that there is, in my opinion. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope Paradox watches this as well. Someone at Paradox, at least. Hi guys, it's me, Taureor. Goodbye.